Ups, momentito. Vamos a grabar, vamos a grabar. Buenos días. ¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Bien? ¿Todo bien? ¿Bien? ¿Bien? Magnífico. Sí. Bueno, aquí también. Good here too. Okay. Today we're going to have the hot and heavy combination of all these verbs starting to collide. It's going to be like a physics lesson. Man, they're going to be like electrons bumping off of each other. It's going to be kind of impossible for us to avoid kind of all these verbs coming into play because they do. In your book, they focus pretty heavy duty, really, the first few chapters. You know, they're more intent on giving you vocabulary that's descriptive, which is good, which is fine, but they focus more on that verb ser. And that's okay, but we need to also see how other verbs come into play. Verbs tell us actions, right? What is happening? And in Spain, in Spanish, not just in Spain, in Spanish, verbs tell you not only what the action is in a sentence, verbs also tell you who's doing it and when they're doing it. And in the when part, we're only going to be talking about things present, things that are going on right now. And present tense in Spanish talks about what is happening at present time, obviously. It can also imply, in the right context, something that will happen near future. It can. It's another possible use. It's another way that present tense is often used. But the verbs we're really going to be looking at pretty heavy duty. Son cuatro? Sí, son cuatro. We're going to be seeing more and more of this verb I, which is the wonderful prize-winning, you only got to know that one word verb. It just talks about things existing, things that are out there. We've got the verb ser, which you've seen. We've got the verb estar, which we'll review and see what kind of questions you have about estar. And we've got, oddly, the verb tener comes into play. So we're going to take a look at tener a little bit today too. So the thing to remember is that when we're learning Spanish, a lot of times we need to learn which, with ser and estar, we just have to memorize what forms those two verbs have. Sadly, Spanish has, strictly speaking, two verbs that translate as to be, but we use them in very different circumstances. So we're going to review that with examples again. Because the best way for you to really learn that is not by trying to pound a list of 10 rules into your head, which, if you were a high school student, that's what they do. I mean, it's okay, but you got to get a feel for making a 50-50 call with, when you want to say I am, or he is, or she is, or they are, or we are. First of all, you got to know all those conjugations, right? Soy, eres, es, somos, son. But you got to make that 50-50 call. Do I use ser to express somebody is a certain way, or do I use estar? Okay, so when you're speaking or even listening, you need to make that 50-50 call kind of quickly, and we're going to hope to give you, instead of a list of gobs and gobs of rules, some easy ways to make the 50-50 call, okay? And the easiest thing to make the 50-50 call is the stupid little rhyme that is, for how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. So when you want to talk about how you feel, health or emotions, use estar. When you want to talk about where a person or an object is located, use estar. Boom. If it's something else, flop it into, there's your 50-50 rule. If it doesn't obey that little rhyme, how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. You're going to flop it into the category of ser, okay? The other thing that will help you, but it won't always help 100% of the time, is that estar tends to talk about things that are easily changed, things that could change quickly, versus estar usually talks about more permanent characteristics. Okay. Where you were born and raised, where you're from. Can't change that. We use ser to say where somebody is from, right? What you do for a profession is something that would take a long time to change. We use ser. It's permanent, sort of. Yeah. That's why the permanent thing is not a perfect way to describe that. Descriptions get a little bit trickier with that, but we won't worry about that yet today. Or if we worry about it, we'll worry about it later on. So, okay. Let's just review what the forms are so you'll know what to expect when you see these verbs, because even tener will come into play with to be, very, very sadly. It does. So we're going to review our ser, estar. First, our ser, just so you know what they are. And then we're going to play around a little bit with estar and seeing if you can match up the forms of estar. And then we're going to talk a little bit about I will have a couple videos to show you examples of how these are used. And, you know, ser estar really intimidates a lot of people, but kind of go with the flow. If you make mistakes with it, native speakers, when they're listening to you, they expect you to make mistakes. You know, I mean, yeah. They expect everybody who learns Spanish to make mistakes. Even French doesn't have this. So, you know, French speakers can get a little bit annoyed with this. Why do the Spaniards do that? We don't do that. Well, yeah. Okay. So ser, once again, gets soy, because again, it tells who does it. So if you're talking about yo, soy, eres, es, somos, and son. And this is when we talk about, again, more permanent things. Origin, where somebody is from, what they do for a living, who they are. Ser identifies who the person is. Anything that identifies talks about a permanent characteristic, a permanent trait, let's call it. Okay, something that you're born with, something that's innate. Yeah. We use ser, right? Estar will get these forms. Estoy for yo. Estoy. Estás, to talk to. Tú, the friendly you. Está, to talk to the formal you, usted, or to talk about one human being that's not me, not me, okay? We call that third person, está. That's why the question is, ¿Cómo está usted? How are you, right? How you are talks about your feelings. How do you feel today, right? Our plural forms will be estamos, if I am in the group and I have people with me, that becomes nosotros, the idea of nosotros, estamos, and están. Están to talk about they are, or you guys, ustedes, are. And we use estar to talk about things that are more easily change. So let's take a quick look again as kind of a review. Let's say for the plural form, ustedes son de Estados Unidos. You guys are from the United States. Where you're from, where you were born, is you can't change that. It's always going to be that. It might not be where you are right now, but where you originally came from, it's unchangeable. So origin has to be in the camp of ser. Ustedes son de Estados Unidos. Okay? But If I want to talk about where these people are with the American flag here, I might say, ustedes están en una fiesta del Día de Independencia. You're at a 4th of July party. Ustedes están en. You are in. You are in. That word in tells you location. En. En means either in or at. It can function in both purposes of in or at. Ustedes están en una fiesta del Día de Independencia. It tells where those people are. For how you feel or where you are, always use the verb estar, and estar would be more appropriate in that context. Okay, let's take a look at another context. Los hombres son de México. The men are from Mexico. Origin, ser, son. Okay, son is the form. And on the other hand, if I want to talk where these guys are, or, now I'm not going to talk about where they are. I'm going to talk about how you feel or where you are, how you feel, how they feel. If they're at a soccer game and they're cheering for the Mexican team, ellos están muy emocionados. They are very excited. Emocionados es excited. Okay, revved up. Emocionados, it does not mean emotional, gushing tears. Although they would be gushing tears if their team won. They're very emotional about soccer and very excited about soccer. Emocionado es excited. Están muy emocionados. So how you feel uses estar. Where you are uses estar. Okay, bien.
I have a question.
Sí, dime.
For the one about the party, could you also say ustedes están de la fiesta del día?
Están de la fiesta. You're from the party. No, we can't use that. Oh, that word de won't work with with estar. De translates as of or from, and sometimes it doesn't translate super great. But when we a preposition that is often used with any form of estar is that word en. En tells you in or at. Therefore, location. I'm at home. Well, that's a location. Okay, the way you, como se dice, I'm at home. Estoy en casa. Estoy en casa. En casa, at home. Okay. En la casa, in the house. In the house may not be my home. It may be my neighbor's house. It may be my kid's house, right? It could be my friend's house. It could, yeah. So when we take the la out of casa and it's just en casa, it becomes at home. Estoy en casa. Estamos en casa. But we would never say estoy a casa or estoy de casa. You might use es la casa de mi abuelo. It's my grandpa's house. Casa de mi abuelo. When we use de in that way, it tells who the house belongs to. Because in Spanish, we don't have the apostrophe S to show possession. So de has a number of jobs. One is to tell origin. Okay. Los hombres son de México. Another job of de is to show who owns stuff. Es la casa de mi amigo. Es el perro de mi hijo. It's my my son's dog. Yeah. So de has a number of little jobs. Does that clear up your question? Sí? Bien. Excelente. Okay. Okay. Now, you may let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at Got to find the right slide for this first. Primero, primero, primero. Eso no, eso. Uy, no, momento. Got to find my correct list for this. We're going to see if you can match up some forms of estar. That is our newer verb. Oh, no, wait. We've already matched up our estar. We've got this one instead. I got to get my... Here we go. And I'll send you a copy of this. Ooh, unless I did. Did I send you the... Wow, let me see. Ahora no recuerdo. No, I don't remember. Did I send you this copy last week or not? Sí o no? No? Estar? No. You saw one with ser, but maybe not this one. We're going to see if you can figure out which form of estar from the chart fits according to the sentence. Okay. So last week we kind of focused on, could you use the right form of ser to talk about a variety of people? We're going to do the same thing, but with estar. And then we're going to see some context uses. Okay. So that we get the how you feel, where you are, and origin and all that stuff straight. Okay. El verbo estar. The verb to be, again, it's to be, but notice our examples at the top, under where it says el verbo estar, it asks, ¿Dónde estás? Where are you? Gives you the example of where you are. And ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Which gives you the how you feel example there, okay? But here are all of our forms. You can ignore the vosotros unless you talk to a lot of people in Spain. It's an extra conjugation to learn. Latin Americans do not use it, but estáis is what they use there. But estoy, estás, está, and now our plural forms estamos, estáis, están. Están, okay? And so the asterisk one is the one that only Spain speakers use, but nobody in Latin America. Okay, let's see if from context we can figure out what form of estar. We know it has to be estar. You're not deciding now, is it ser or is it estar? We're just deciding the forms of estar. If somebody says in a dialogue kind of feel, Buenos dias, Susana. Hi, Sue. Hi, Susan. How are you? And you're calling her by her first name. This is important. ¿Cómo se dice how are you? ¿Cómo? And I'll scooch this down a little bit. Which of these verbs here will it be? ¿Cómo?
¿Cómo estás?
Estás. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? If instead of saying Buenos días, Susana, I said Buenos días, Señor Gómez. Then I would change that verb. I wouldn't, for Buenos días, Señor Gómez, I would ask, ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo está? Because the implication would be usted. If I call somebody by their last name, I don't address them with a tú verb. Okay? I've got to use that onesie person verb that used for él or ella or usted. ¿Cómo está? But because we call her by her first name, Susana, we're using tú with that person. ¿Cómo estás? And she would answer, bien, gracias. Okay? Now we're going to talk about location. Biblioteca is a library. Libros are books. ¿Cómo se dice? The books are in the library. Los libros. And it's more than one item. We're talking about libros.
Están.
Están. Están with an N, an N at the end. Están. Los libros están en la biblioteca. So whether we're talking about people or objects, things, even buildings, even cities, location is estar, okay? Los libros están en la biblioteca. And that little word en is helpful. En means in or at. So you're talking location if we're using that little preposition. Okay. And now we've got a feeling word, concentrados. Ooh, like focusing really, really hard, like got to put the blinders on and really focus. Concentrated, meaning I'm focused. Nosotros estamos concentrados. I could plug in any feeling word there. I could say estamos contentos. We're happy. Estamos tristes, we're sad. Estamos ocupados, we're busy. Estamos preocupados, we are worried. Anything that talks about your emotional state, your feelings, your health will need this verb estar. Okay, and now we've got the word busy. Busy is a transient state. It changes. Sometimes you're busy, sometimes you're not. Okay, so we need that temporary verb estar. And we're going to match it up with the word usted, with the person usted. How do you ask, are you busy?
Está.
¿Está usted ocupado? Okay. If you walked up to a worker, if you walked up to your boss, something like that, this would be an appropriate question. ¿Está usted ocupado? Are you busy? And if they answer you back, they're going to answer an usted question with a yo answer. Yeah. Are you busy? The person doesn't look and say, you're not busy. I'm busy, right? So the answer on the other side of that is no, yo no
Estoy.
estoy ocupado. No, no estoy ocupado. And notice the way we negate things, we make the idea negative for that action, is just by putting the word no in front of the verb. Okay. No estoy ocupado. Yo is in parentheses because people will drop the yo. But that's just to give you the prompt. Cansada means tired, and it means that a woman is tired. It's a woman speaking here saying yo. Notice we can't tell from yo, the word I, if it's a woman or a man. We'd have to see that person. So if a woman were speaking about herself, she would say yo estoy muy cansada. I'm very tired. Muy just means very. It intensifies the idea of cansada. So cansada has to go into a feminine form, but notice verbs don't go into the masculine feminine thing at all. Verbs don't go into masculine feminine. Verb tells who does an action, but they don't have gender associated with verbs. But the feeling word cansada does get an A at the end to say tired, cansada. If it were a man speaking, he would say estoy cansado. Cansado. It would be an O at the end instead of a cansada at the end. Okay. Reloj is this thing, guys. Or it could be a great big one. A great big one hanging on a wall. It could be that too. Reloj can mean either one of those things. So if I ask, hey, where's the clock? I would ask, ¿dónde está el reloj? Reloj, hard word to say. Reloj, we need that ch sound at the end because it's got a J at the end. So that's not pronounced reloj. It's reloj, reloj. A little bit like Loch Ness Monster, if you say it in a very Scottish way. ¿Dónde está el reloj? And if you say, oh, it's on the wall. It's on the wall. It's on the wall. It's talking about one thing, even though it's not a human being. We have to talk about it is. And the word is going to be?
Estoy.
It won't be estoy because then it would say, I'm on the wall. Pick me up, hang me on the wall.
Está.
Está, because we're talking about, we're talking about actually probably this thing, because this wouldn't be on the wall, but this would, right? Está en la pared. La pared is your wall, your interior wall. Está en la pared. We're talking about reloj. Where is the clock? Oh, it's on the wall. And you don't need the word it in that case, just to say it's located there. Está en la pared. Here's a great question. Are you guys at home? Ustedes.
Están.
Están. ¿Están ustedes en casa? ¿Están ustedes en casa? And ustedes is there so that you got to match up the form of estar with ustedes. People, if they're looking you straight in the eye, you look at three people, or, you're on the phone and you're talking about the person's family. Hey, you guys at home? And they may drop that word ustedes and just say, están en casa? Están en casa? You guys at home? And, but when we answer that, the answer to an ustedes question becomes a nosotros answer. No, nosotros estamos en la escuela. Are you at home? No, we're at school. Escuela is school. Estamos en la escuela. We're at school. Or we're in the school. Either way. Okay. Bien. Let's take a look at ocho. Maria. Pálida says pallid, like pale. All the color drained out of your face. That's the word pálida. And we're talking about Maria. So the word pálida has to be a feminine type word because pálida describes what Maria looks like. No color in her face. Maria
Está.
Está pálida. She's all pale because she's got a resfriada. She's got a cold. Porque we need the verb again.
Está.
Está resfriada. María está pálida porque está resfriada. She's pale because she's got a cold. And we won't say got a cold. We'll say she is resfriada. She's suffering from a cold. Okay?
I have a question. How come you can't use the verb tener? She has.
Oh.
Or
What a good question. Que buena pregunta. There is a different word for cold. There are about 3 different ways to talk about having a cold in Spanish. How confusing. If you use, instead of the word resfriado or resfriada, if you use a different word for cold, which is catarro, you can use tener. Tengo catarro. Tengo, I have. Tengo catarro. I have a cold. But most people, in an everyday chit-chat sort of way, this is like one of the favorite words to say, have a cold. And you're right. It doesn't translate word for word, does it? It doesn't. It's just a different word order, word combination that they commonly use. But you could say, tengo catarro, but I can tell you this would be way more common. Está resfriada. She's got a cold. Okay. Estoy resfriada. I have a cold. That is like the go-to, probably most common way to say that. Okay. And now we've got a word that is going to be a fuller word in 9. This looks like embarrassed, but it does not mean embarrassed at all. Embarazada looks like embarrassed, but what it means is pregnant. Oh, so if you want to say Cristina is expecting a little one, you say Cristina está embarazada. Oh, good God. Yes, I hope that's temporary condition. Yes, thank God. Okay. Está embarazada. Está embarazada. And we never use that to say embarrassed. Está embarazada. It is a health condition that, is going to change in 9 months. Okay. Bien. We can talk about location even with things that you think of as kind of permanent thing. Cities don't change their locations, but it's the location of an item, which happens to be a city in this case. So if I want to say Seville is in the south of Spain, I'm talking about its location. Okay. Sevilla, and it's only a one item thing, and it's not a yo, so it's got to be Sevilla.
Está.
Está Sevilla está en el sur de España. Sevilla está en el sur de España. Seville is in the south of Spain, and south of Spain is a location idea. So we need estar. Sevilla está. It's only one city, so está. And if we want to talk about where Bogotá is in Colombia, we need the verb estar. Bogotá
Está.
está en el centro de Colombia. Location, even if it's something as big as a city, is estar. I want to say she's not at school. Colegio is another way to say school. It would be anywhere from middle school on up, can even be high school. So we're going to call this high school. I know it looks like college, but it never means college, colegio. And we're going to say, we're going to make it negative. You're going to notice the word no. That'll be in front of the form of estar. She's not at school. Ella no está en el colegio because she's on vacation. Porque está de vacaciones. And on vacation is that two-word combo. Always. De vacaciones means on vacation. I know de doesn't mean on, but that's the way they express the idea of on vacation. And vacation is never a singular. It is always a plural. De vacaciones. If I want to say I'm on vacation, estoy de vacaciones. If I want to say we're on vacation, estamos de vacaciones. If I want to say, hey, are you guys on vacation? ¿Están ustedes de vacaciones? Okay. Bien. And let's take a look at hospital, a place, a location. That word en is a signal. I'm talking about now a location, a place. They are in the hospital. Ellos están, we need a na at the end. Están en el hospital because they're sick. ¿Por qué? Están enfermos. So we've got first reason, location. Están en el hospital. Porque is our connecting word because. It says because. Porque están enfermos. They are sick. We've got the second reason, how they feel. Enfermos, we have the word infirm, infirmary. Enfermo is the word for sick. Okay. Bien. And I'll send you that and the answer key so you can check it out. This one down here will be vosotros estáis concentrados, but only Spain people use estáis concentrados. You guys are focused. Okay. So little review of forms of estar. Now, let's check out, we're going to check out two videos. And the first one is going to talk about, I'm going to call them the big three. And the big three are, do I use a form of ser or a form of estar? Or do I use that one little by itself verb, I? And why the heck do we have so many ways to say is or are? Am. Well, okay, I can't be am. I only talks about stuff. Okay. But why do we have I and then forms of ser, forms of estar? Why do they confuse us? Well, they confuse us because those things have a context, a meaning that is going to pop up and vary from one situation to another. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. It's all in Spanish, so I'm going to pause and kind of interpret some things. So let's review. For how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. Okay. If it doesn't fall into that category of that rhyme, it's in camp ser. But he's also going to show you this third verb, I. There are. And we saw I to talk about how many people there are. Remember that I just means there is or there are. Okay, so he's going to show you what the context is for using these three different verbs. And he's going to be talking about cities and where the cities are and what the cities are like and who's or what is in the city. This is a Spanish guy. He actually works in Czech Republic. So I believe he teaches there.
Soy Sergi Martín.
Oh, he tells who he is. And now he's going to tell you where he is. He's on vacation.
Y estoy de vacaciones en la República Checa. Hoy vamos a aprender cómo describir una ciudad
Today, we're going to talk about how to describe a city
usando tres verbos muy importantes.
usando means using three verbs that are very important.
Haber, ser y estar.
Now, the only thing you need to know that haber is an infinitive, and it's the verb that hay, H-A-Y. That's what I comes from. Wow, what happened to the B? Well, it flew out the window. But know that it comes from an infinitive, like ser is an infinitive, like estar is an infinitive, but you are not going to be using the word haber by itself. You're going to be using it in the single form of I in all of these instances. Okay, and now he's going to dance. Here we go.
Podemos describir la ciudad
We can describe a city
donde estoy ahora
where I am now, and I am now is talking about location. Estoy ahora.
Hradec Králové, de una forma muy sencilla.
In a really easy way, a simple way. And now he's going to use I. So we've got our great big red word I up in the upper left hand. See, a la izquierda, up in the left. He's talking about what's in Hradec? What's in the city? So we're only going to be talking about what exists, what's out there. What's around? What's around? Okay, and he's going to use I.
En Hradec Králové hay iglesias.
In Hradec Králové, there are churches. Iglesias means churches. So what's there to see? Oh, there are, if we can translate the idea of there are, it's I. There are churches.
Hay hoteles y restaurantes.
There are hotels and restaurants. They're just out there. I'm not saying the hotel is on the corner. That's a location. Just, there's a hotel someplace around here. Hay hoteles y restaurantes. There are hotels and restaurants.
Hay farmacias.
There are pharmacies. They're around. If you need to ask, hey, is there a pharmacy? You're in desperate need of something for your headache. Yeah. Or something for the flu or whatever. You would ask, ¿hay una farmacia? Is there a pharmacy around here? ¿Hay una farmacia? Is there one? And then somebody will turn around and point. Literally, they will point to show you where to go. Okay.
Hay museos.
There are museums.
Usamos hay del verbo haber para hablar de la existencia de cosas.
We talk about I just to say that things are out there. They exist.
Hradec Králové no es muy famosa, pero
Now he's going to be using es. He's talking about the city. And he's going to say it. And we're going to see why we use es to say it is, the city is. Let me back it up just a little bit. Hradec is not very famous. And this is a characteristic. And he's making it negative. It's not the first place you think of. Okay, it's not famous. That's not a temporary kind of thing. It's description of what it's really like.
muy famosa, pero es interesante.
But it's interesting. Interesting is not a changeable thing. It's just what it's really like.
Es una ciudad histórica.
It's an historic city. We're identifying what it is. It's a city that's historic.
Y es bastante bonita.
And it's quite pretty. Bastante means quite in this sense. Quite pretty. Rather pretty. Es bonita. It's pretty. How it looks is pretty. It's a characteristic. Okay. The city is just, it's always that way.
Usamos es del verbo ser para describir las cosas.
We use ser to describe things. When we describe things that are a hallmark, something that tells you what that thing or human being is really like in a general way all the time. Okay. Es to talk about one thing, right? We're not doing all the forms of ser here, just es.
La iglesia está en la plaza.
Now we're going to use uses of estar. He's going to talk about where stuff is. Where stuff is located. And now he's not just going to say, there's a church. Oh, you like architecture, there's a church. Maybe that's interesting for you. Yeah. He's going to talk about where the church is located. La iglesia está en la plaza. The church is it's on the plaza. All right. A plaza is a city square. Yeah. We kind of borrowed this word into English as a plaza, but plaza is a city square, a central area of the city.
Que está en el centro de la ciudad.
Which is in the center of the city. Que está en el centro de la ciudad. But notice, está en. It's at or it's in.
Usamos está del verbo estar para localizar las cosas.
We use estar to tell location. Tell the location of things. Localizar is one way to say location.
En la República Checa hay una ciudad
There is a city,
que es bastante
which is quite interesting,
interesante y que está en
and which is in the eastern part of the country, in el este, in the eastern.
el este del país.
Okay. Bien.
¿Y tú? ¿Cómo describes tu ciudad?
How do you describe your city? Okay. Bien. So that is one video, and I'll send you the link so you can watch it again and see the explanations again. It is one set of descriptions of why we use I, or why we use a form of estar, or why we use ser, right? In context is always the most helpful because we don't have a direct translation in English for this. Another way to think about I versus ser, a form of ser, versus a form of estar, is when we talk about weather. Wow, weather is always changeable. So weather has examples we can use with these verbs as well. So we're going to watch some examples. And again, I'm going to give you the links for all of these, but just kind of get a feel. Weather is very changeable. Weather has certain verbs that work together. You're going to see him actually using yet a different verb that you haven't seen before. But just to give you a rolling feel of how ser and estar can be used, we'll check out these examples.
Del clima en español, pues te recomiendo que te
Clima means weather. It looks like climate, and it can mean climate, clima. Ooh, I'll turn on the subtitles so you can see it. You're going to hear him using some of these same verbs, but to talk about clima, weather.
aprendas estos tres verbos: está, hay y hace.
And here he's going to add a different one. And because we're having a weather day today, it's a good day to do this. So you're going to throw in a different one that you haven't seen yet, hace, just so that you know, hace is often used to talk about weather as well. But you'll notice ser is used less to talk about weather, but I can be used a lot to talk about weather, and estar can be used a lot to talk about weather, because we can say there is snow outside. We could say there is rain, and then we use I. There are clouds, then we use I. Okay. So when we say there is stuff in the air, there's hail, there's rain, there are clouds, we can use I. We can also use estar to say it's cloudy, it's raining. Okay, so you'll see some examples
Vamos a
here.
ver cómo los puedes utilizar. Está es el verbo más común para hablar del clima. ¿Ya?
Está is the verb that we use the most to talk about weather. Well, I also, but está quite a lot because weather is so changeable, and estar is for temporary, changeable, easy to change conditions that shift and become something else easily, quickly.
Alguien te pregunta cómo está el clima.
If somebody asks you, ¿Cómo está el clima? They're asking you, what's the weather like? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Asking about your health, but ¿Cómo está el clima? What's the weather like? Okay.
Tú puedes decir está nublado.
Está nublado. It's cloudy. Cloudy is a condition that can change quickly. Or it might be here all day. Might be gone tomorrow, but it's changeable. Está nublado. It's cloudy.
Está soleado.
Está soleado. It's sunny. Soleado, sunny. And again, you don't have to scribble these down. I'll give you the link for this so you can watch it again.
Está lloviendo.
Here's the one for today. Está lloviendo. Está lloviendo. It's raining. Okay. It's raining right now. Está lloviendo.
Está nevando.
Está nevando. If we were up in Flag, this is what we'd be talking about. Nevando is snowing. Está nevando.
Está chispeando o lloviznando.
Well, lloviznando is what I would look at for that. Yeah, chispeando, drizzling, meaning not raining super hard. Okay. That's kind of a harder word to remember. So that's something for maybe later on, but not super essential. Lloviendo is a more important one. Está lloviendo is more important, more useful to you right now.
Está granizando.
Oh, here's what happened at my house yesterday. Está granizando. It's not snow, but it's hailing. Yeah. Hail is coming down. Está granizando. Granizando, perdón. Granizando. Graniza. If you cut off the NDO, graniza means hail. The thing that you hold in your hand being hail, graniza. So granizando is it's hailing.
Está despejado. El cielo
Está despejado. It is clear. It is clear, meaning the clouds are few and far between. Okay. Está despejado. That word despejado is a good one for weather. Despejado. If it is clear, we don't have a whole ton of clouds covering the whole sky. A few things, a few clouds here and there. Despejado.
O está helado.
Está helado. It's frozen. Helado. It's freezing. Está helado.
También puedes usar hay si alguien te pregunta cómo está el clima Tú
You
puedes
can also use I to talk about the weather, but I always has to be paired up with a thing, a noun, not a describer. Okay. So está lloviendo, está nublado, cloudy. Those are describer words. But when I pair it up with a noun, I can often use I because I'll just say, oh, there are clouds. Okay. There is rain. Instead of it is raining. All right. So I might use I in certain circumstances.
decir hay viento.
Hay viento. There's wind. There's wind. Hay viento. Hay viento. Wind is a thing. Hay viento.
Hay neblina.
Hay neblina. There's fog. And notice fog is not the same as foggy. Foggy is a describer, but fog is a thing, right? And if I just say, wow, the fog exists out there, it's a blanket of fog. Hay neblina. Hay neblina.
Hay una tormenta.
Hay una tormenta. There's a storm. Yeah, not it is stormy, but there's a storm. We're pairing it with the noun storm. Hay una tormenta. Tormenta is storm. Okay. And I had to show this video today because we're in weird weather this week and we can hardly ever use this in where we live. Okay. Hay una tormenta.
Hay humedad.
Hay humedad. There's humidity.
Hay una sequía.
Hay una sequía. We could use this almost always. There's drought. There's a drought going on.
Hay una inundación.
Hay una inundación. There's a flood.
Hay rayos. Hay truenos.
Hay rayos. Rayos is lightning. Truenos is the thunder. Okay. Hay rayos. There's lightning. Hay truenos. There's thunder. And both of those words, truenos, rayos, are nouns. They are things. Okay. We can use I with things.
Hay un huracán.
Hay un huracán. There's, well, you can see what that is. Huracán, we borrowed from Spanish, which borrowed it from the natives that
Lo
lived there.
usamos principalmente en dos casos.
Okay. Hace is used sometimes to talk about weather, and we'll just talk about this briefly. Hace, and you see it in this first part here, H-A-C-E. And remember, we don't pronounce the H, la H, no. So it's pronounced hace, hace. Hace literally means it makes. In Spanish, the weather, the sky makes stuff happen. Okay, so hace, besides using está, besides using I to say that a condition exists, you might hear the word hace used with weather. But notice, hace will be used to talk about weather, but not about how people feel hot or cold. Okay, and we'll tie that in a little bit later.
Hace frío o hace calor.
This is the way we
Puedo
use
decir
hace.
también hace mucho frío.
Okay, so I'm going to take my CC off. Here is how you hear hace to talk about weather. When we talk about the weather, we're not saying I'm cold or I'm hot. We're saying it's hot outside. And the way you say that is to use sometimes that word hace, because you're saying the weather is making this. That's the way they express that idea. It just is. Okay. So we can use the word with the word frío. Hace frío. It's cold outside. We can intensify it. Hace mucho frío. Mucho. Much. It makes much cold. That's what they're saying. Or, it's only a little cold. A little bit. Un poco de frío. Un poco de frío. Hace un poco de frío. Instead of un poco de frío, you may hear people substitute a different word that's kind of related, and that's the word hace fresco. Fresco sounds like the soda fresca, yeah? Fresco means cool. Not cool as in neat, nifty, cool as in, well, better than cold, but still chilly, yeah? Hace fresco. So you may hear hace frío, hace mucho frío, hace un poco de frío, hace fresco. You may even hear fresco, and he's going to show you the opposite.
Hace mucho frío o hace un poco de frío. También puedo decir hace mucho calor o
And
hace
notice none of these say I'm hot. They say it's hot outside. Hace calor. Hace mucho calor. We're magnifying it, right? Hace un poco de calor. It's a little warm. Okay.
hace un poco de calor. En menor medida, también utilizamos hace con viento.
We also use hace with viento.
Hace mucho viento.
So you can say hay viento, there is wind, or you can say hace viento, it makes wind. I know that sounds a little weird, but that's what it means. Hace viento. Viento goes with either hay or hace. Hay viento or hace viento, both correct, both perfectly fine.
Por eso se están moviendo los árboles.
That's why the trees
Por
are moving.
último, si quieres referirte a la temperatura, puedes
Okay,
preguntar.
and he's going to tell you how we talk about temperature. Okay, and you'll hear the word grados, which is what they use for degrees. Okay, think of it as grades. You know, temperature goes in gradations, I guess you could say. And for temperatures, that changes a lot. So because temperatures are easily changeable, we will not use I, and we're not going to use hace. We're going to use está. Está. But you'll hear an está a, and you'll see the
¿A qué
combo.
temperatura están?
¿A qué temperatura están? What's the temperature at? And you may hear that as a singular, está, instead of están. Either way, it's not a real biggie. Either está or están.
¿A qué temperatura están hoy? ¿A qué temperatura están hoy en Ciudad de México? Y para responder, simplemente dices, estamos a 20 grados. Estamos a 25 grados.
And, oh, estamos means we're at. Estamos a. And now we're not talking about a location, but what degree level we're at. And we're going to use the little word a. That's just what they use to talk about temperatures. Okay. So this is a temperature, a word order, a word chunk, a chunk of words that hang together to talk about temperatures. Estamos a, and now we've got a number, 20 grados. Estamos a 20 grados. Estamos a 25 grados. So that's how you say, oh, we're at this certain temperature. And they use centigrade, so that's why it looks like 20 and not higher, because centigrade is right, the different way of measuring instead of Fahrenheit. Okay, so I just want to show you a little bit about those different things to talk about weather and a city. And we're going to take a look at one other helpful thing, and then we got to practice some numbers so that we can segue to numbers. Okay. Last verb we're going to talk about is an odd verb. Well, okay. Actually, I don't think it really is that odd, but it is something. We don't use it in the English way. So, okay, you could say it's odd. And that is the verb tener. Sometimes, oddly, it is helpful for you to know this verb tener. Can you see my tener screen? Somebody give me a verbal yes. See? See? And I had, let me make sure it's on there. Otra vez. Yeah. Bien. Okay. Bien. Tener. Tener means to have. And of course, it's irregular, meaning you just have to memorize what forms it is. But the forms are, and you had a little video for this, tengo, a G comes in. You know, there's no G in tener, but the yo form gets a G. It just does. Tengo, I have. Tienes, with an S at the end. So it's a tú talking to you. Tienes, you have. Tiene, he or she has. Tenemos, we have. And tienen, they have. And the odd thing about this verb tener, it does mean literally have something. Okay. So I can say, tengo un libro. I could say, tengo una taza, tengo, I have. Tengo una taza de café. Tengo un suéter. I have a sweater. Tengo un suéter. Bien? Okay. But tener, unlike, what you wouldn't expect, what you don't expect, is that the verb tener can also be used in some limited circumstances to say I am, you are, he is, she is, we are. Yeah, it can be used in certain limited circumstances. It can be used also for the English idea of somebody is, and I will show you how. Oh, where did my slide go? I lost my slide. I gotta go find it again. Otra vez. And when it is used in that way, what it is expressing is somebody, what we call idioms. Idioms are specific verb phrases that are not translated exactly, because they'll sound dumb. Okay, it's just idioms are a special phrasing that a language will use to express an idea. And sometimes tener shows who owns stuff, who has stuff. But sometimes tener in all of these forms is used to talk about ideas where in English we say is. So let's take a look at when we need these. Tener can be just possession. Tengo un carro. I have a car. Okay. Mi familia tiene un perro. My family has a dog. But a lot of common expressions use tener, and they are non-translatable. We'll use a different other verb, not have, to say this in English. But this is what they use in Spanish. If you want to say a human being feels hot or cold, notice not talking about the weather, but somebody feels hot or cold, you'll use tener. So I might say, tengo calor en agosto. I'm hot in August. I feel hot in August. Tengo calor. Okay? And notice you cannot say estoy calor or estoy caliente. Here's a big disclaimer. People look up what's the word for hot, and they find in the dictionary, caliente. Oh, caliente looks like calor. Oh, that must mean hot. Well, yes, caliente means hot. But if you say estoy caliente, you're saying I'm horny. That's probably not what you mean in an everyday conversation. What you really want to say is I feel hot, because the temperature has shot up. So what you really want to use, what you really need to say is not that verb estar, which you would think, well, that's logical. It's a changeable state. I'm not always hot. What you need is this, tener. In Spanish, this is just the way they say a person feels warm. Not the weather, but a person feels this way. Tengo calor, okay? Or I can use it with cold. Tengo frío en diciembre. I'm cold in December. Tengo calor en agosto. Tengo frío en diciembre. Okay? How a person feels. Temperature-wise, we use tener. To talk about age, oddly enough, you never say, soy 60 años, I am 60 years old. Okay? I cannot use soy to say that idea. It needs this verb tener in this special idiom, which is just an untranslatable expression. It's a combination of words they use to talk about age. If I talk about the number of years old somebody is, I need tener. Literally, they say somebody has a number of years. It's just what they say. So, Roberto tiene 10 años. Roberto is 10. If you say Roberto es 10 años, you're saying he's a big number 10. And that makes no sense to them. That's not what they say. To talk about age with a number of years, we need tener with the number of years. So this is another special phrase with tener. Roberto tiene 10 años. Okay? We use tener to talk about hunger or thirst. And the phrase becomes tener with hambre or tener with sed, to say somebody has hunger, has thirst. It's just the way they say it. So, él tiene hambre. He's hungry. Tiene hambre. Literally, he has hunger. But if you said he has hunger in English, somebody would think, what a weirdo. We don't use that combination of words in English, but they do in Spanish. Él tiene hambre. If I want to say she's thirsty, literally I have to say it as she has thirst. Ella tiene sed. Ella tiene sed. Él tiene hambre. Ella tiene sed. Okay? To say somebody is sleepy, we use the word tagged on sueño. Okay? Ella tiene sueño. She is sleepy. Literally, she has sleepiness. That's how they say that idea. So certain words, and I'll send you this whole list, certain words combine with tener. And in English, we won't say has, even though tener does mean has. We use in English is or are, right? Or am to talk about myself. But in Spanish, with these ideas, with these expressions, they use tener, not ser and not estar. Okay? And here are some other, there are whole gobs and gobs of expressions used with tener. These are of maybe less importance, but they're things you may hear people using to say somebody is careful. They say they have care. Okay? Tengo mucho cuidado con el carro. I'm very careful with the car. Okay? Tener with suerte means to be lucky. Tengo suerte con la lotería. I'm lucky with the lottery. Or at the lottery, we might say in English, I guess. When you say somebody is right, they are correct. They use this word razón, rightness. Yeah. Papá no tiene razón. Dad is not right. Papá no tiene razón. No tiene razón. He is not right. Okay. We use tener with miedo to say that somebody is scared. They're afraid. Ella tiene miedo a las serpientes. Literally, she has fear of serpents, and literally there they don't use the word of, they use sometimes. Okay, so ella tiene miedo, she has fear. Okay, instead of she is scared. Ella tiene miedo a las serpientes. And when people say they're in a rush, they're in a hurry, they use tener with the word prisa. Prisa. Somebody might say, "Whoo, look at the time. Mira la hora. Tengo prisa. I'm in a hurry." Okay, so certain expressions use tener. Okay, and this week I'm going to send you a long video. And keep in mind, the lady is far too cheerful because she's talking mainly to a middle school audience. My apologies. But it is a nice video because it combines ser and estar and tener. And it combines all those and says, well, I know in English we just say I am, he is, they are, we are. But in Spanish, we're going to use a combination of these different verbs. So I'll send you another video because what is always helpful is to see loads and loads of examples of how they're used. But tener has limited specific words it uses to be used in those contexts. Okay? Bien? Okay. ¿Alguna pregunta? We're going to kind of close that up and do a bit with numbers now, unless you've got a question. If you've got a question, ask it. That's fine. No? Okay. And if it feels like this is a lot at once, well, yeah, it all tangles together. I know, you'll see. Let's take a look at numbers. And we're going to practice some numbers now. And I'm going to model some of these numbers. And then we're going to practice some numbers. Ooh, we're going to see if you can give me some numbers. But we kind of have to we're going to spend this week and next week a lot on numbers. And what I want to cover with you today is 1 through 20, and we'll dip our toe a tiny bit into 30 so that, again, you can hear how they're pronounced. Because one thing you're going to notice is that with numbers, we wind up having a lot of these diphthongs, and that means two vowels that are going to be right next to each other. And we need to get comfortable with saying those numbers and saying those sounds with, the proper sounds together. Okay. And again, I'm going to send you this whole file. So don't say, oh my gosh, I've got to make notes of all this stuff, because you're going to have the notes that you can save on your computer. Why do we need to know numbers? Okay, ¿por qué son importantes? Why are they important? Well, you may need to talk about transportation, asking for directions or addresses, or the number of blocks you have to walk, or the number of the bus route that you need to get on, the train number, the flight number, transportation. Phone numbers, we use numbers for those. Expressing the amounts of things you want to buy. Ooh, this one is a biggie. Number 3 and number 4. How many things you want and what price you want to pay. And next week, we're going to use a lot of prices to practice these numbers. Today, we're just getting used to the pronunciation, how they sound, and how to say them. So our focus today is on 0 through 20. We dip our toe into the 30 world, but yeah. So, okay. Por ejemplo, the 0 concept is this word, cero. Cero. 0. Cero. We can't have ZE next to each other in Spanish. It's just a thing. Okay. So that ZERO becomes CERO. Cero. Okay. Uno, or it might be una if it's talking about a feminine thing. Not all the number words go into feminine form. Very few. This is one that might. Uno or una, or it might even get shortened to un, like un perro, a dog. Okay. But just one by itself, standing alone, is uno. Okay. Dos. So if I want to talk about these items, dos globos, 2 balloons. Dos globos. Tres. 3 of these things, estrellas. Okay, stars. 3 estrellas. Bien? Okay. If we talk about bolsas, bags, it would be 4 bolsas. 4. And notice we've got a diphthong, U and A, 4. And the CUA is UA, 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 UA. Ua, that ua, they run together. 4. Think the word quartet, and it's got the same kind of sound combination. Quartet. 4. A quartet is 4 people, right? Playing music together. Manzanas, apples. 5 manzanas. 5 apples, okay? Ornamentos, or sometimes we call these adornos. Adornos. 6 adornos. We've got another diphthong. We've got e. So we pronounce each sound. E. 6. 6 ornamentos. I'm going to change this to adornos because that's a shorter word. Adornos. Ornaments. Okay. Now we've got pájaros, birds. Pájaros. And now we have not 6, but 1 number up. And now it is a diphthong and it's an IE sound together. IE. 7. Okay. And next we've got the one that nobody ever gets this wrong. 8. Right? Think of octopus. Octopus comes from the same thing in Latin long ago. 8 lápices. 8 lápices. Okay. Bien. Bien. Now we've got another one. Another diphthong. We've got the U and the E next to each other so it becomes ue. We end with a smile. Ue. 9. 9 libros. 9 libros. 9 books. Okay. Bien. And we're going to round it out with our 10 word. Our 10 word is like the word in English for decimal system, a number based on 10. Decimal comes from the same word here as 10. And we have a diphthong again. I, e, 10. In Spain, that is pronounced 10 with a th at the end. The z at the end sounds like a th. 10. Okay, but Latin America, it's 10, like an S sound. 10 centavos, 10 cents. 10 cents. Okay, 10. Now, these numbers, 0, let's start with 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 1 through 10 or 0 through 10, however you want to look at it, are your base numbers. And these numbers you should know, you should memorize these numbers inside out and know them out of order. The easiest thing in the world is to memorize them in order. But then when you got to think of them out of order, now your brain goes into a jumble. And that is a normal kind of feeling. But know them out of order as well. And I will show you an example that we will practice together next week. Okay. Here is what we're going to practice next week. We're going to practice with the following 2 slides, and I'll send these to you so you can kind of get a feel for it. What I'm going to have you do next week is I'm going to have you do numbers as single digits. Okay, single digits in a phone number. And you'll have this to prep to do that in class next week. So, por ejemplo, I'm going to pick something that's kind of redundant, repetitive here. So you see what you're going to do. Next week, you're going to come in. I'm going to have you recite some phone numbers. So if we looked at super liquor, that was kind of politically incorrect, but oh well. These are, just yellow pages stuff, right? Páginas amarillas, yellow pages. Okay. The phone number here would be 527-3777. I'm picking the easy one. Okay. So next week, I'm going to send you into some smaller rooms to practice with one other person doing these numbers. It's not going to take you long, right? And I'm taking the most repetitive one there so that you do the harder ones next week. And you're going to just recite them as single numbers. But notice you're going to be taking this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 concept, and you're going to be mixing them into a different order. So that should seem easy peasy, but it's not so easy when you got to do it on the spur of the moment, right? So you'll have this page to practice with, and you'll have this page to practice with, and you can kind of prep it in your mind's eye. You can kind of try to do these on your own. And before we do practice in smaller groups with this next week, you can ask me any questions you've got on that. Okay? But that's what you'll be doing to kind of ensure that you can say these numbers out of their sequential order. Okay? Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to divide things into segments now. 1 through 10. 1 through 10, you're going to recycle and reuse all the time. Because if you know the 1 through 10 numbers, that's what you're going to use when you get to higher numbers like 38, 49, 73, 142. Those 1 through 10 numbers are going to recycle because you're going to need them for the last digit of the bigger numbers. But we're going to take a look at the 11 through 15 segment because they wind up being one word issues, and then the 16 through 20 because it becomes like a math problem. So we're going to take a look at those. So if I've got 11 items, yeah, the word for 11 is once. That's pronounced once, not once. It looks like the English word once, but it doesn't mean that at all. Once is the word for 11. Once plumas. Once plumas. 11 pens. 12. Doce. And notice, dos is 2. When I take the sound dos and I add an e on the end of it, doce, it becomes 12. Doce. Dos, 2. We build on that to make the word 12. Doce. We build on the word tres, 3, to get to 13. Tres becomes the same sound, tres, but with an e at the end. Trece. Trece. Tres pelotas. 13 balls. Billiard balls here, right? Trece pelotas. Okay? Bien? And next, I've got the word 14, which my teenage students long ago, years ago, used to call the long one. This is the long word. 14. It's such long, 3 syllables. 14. It kind of looks like cuatro, but not really. It's harder than saying cuatro, 4. It's 14. 14. 14. But notice these all end in a se sound, se, right? 14. 14 bombones or 14 caramelos. 14 candies. And now our 15 word, which is going to end in a se sound. But instead of taking cinco, 5, It works on a different Latin word, which is that QUI thing, and it's quince. Quince. And QUI is key, right? So quince. Quince, 15. Quince naranjas. Quince naranjas. Bien? 15 oranges. Okay? 16 through 19 becomes like a math problem. You're essentially saying 10 and 6. And the idea of and is usually spelled with an Y, that Y. E means and if it stands alone. But we change that E to something that sounds exactly the same, a different letter to spell it, and that's the I with a dot at the top. So 16, literally 10 and 6. That's 16. Instead of 16, it's 16. 16. 16 tomates. And it can be spelled as this, 16, or it can be spelled as this, 16, with the E instead of the I. Fewer people spell it this way, more people spell it this way. Do you need to know how to write it out? No, you don't. You're going to say the number, and you need to hear and recognize the number, but you don't need to learn to write it out like that, okay? But just so you know how to pronounce it, right? 10 and 7 is going to be our next word. Our next number is 10 and 7. 17. 17. Okay? Bien. And 2 more. 18. 18. Whoop. Perdón. Trying to get my Bien. Okay. 18. Ay. Got my alignment off here. 18 platos. 10 and 8 plates is 18. 18. 18 platos. Okay. 19 becomes 10 and 9. 19. 19. 19. Okay. 19 days. Okay. And now we'll have a brand new word to get to the next unit of 10, and that is 20. $20. 20. And it's VEI. So we've got a diphthong here. A. 20. It sounds like vein. Vein with a T at the end. 20. 20. Okay? 20. 20. And so that you know what we did with 10 and 7, 10 and 6, 10 and 8, all of those words, we do with the 20 sequence. Okay? 20 and 1, 20 and 2. This is where the recycling of 1 through 10 comes in. 20 and 1, 20 and 2, 20 and 3. That's the way they're going to say the numbers. So here's what they sound like. 21, and notice they all get run together usually for the 20s, but they're going to get split apart and go to the and word for the 30s and up. It's just what they do. Okay, so it'll sound like this: 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. And we're going to take you up to 30 so that you know what the 30 is. The next set of 10. The next set of 10 is 30. 30. Like we had A, we've got A. But 30. 30. It still sounds a little bit like 3, but it's 30. 30. And if you know the 0 through 10, we're just going to recycle the 0 through 10 numbers. It becomes 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Bien? So, next week, what you're going to do is you're going to practice, because I'll send you this file. You're going to practice some of these numbers so that you can do the single digits, 1 through 10 numbers separately, okay, with a partner. We'll do a little more with telling how many numbers of things are there. We're going to do a little quick dictation. Next week is going to be almost all numbers. We're going to spend the most of our time on numbers because numbers are a super, super survival skill. And your most important skill will be when I hear a number, does that digit pop into my head? The most important skill you have with numbers is hearing a number and not thinking of it in terms of words, but does the digit pop into your head? That's what you want to happen. The listening comprehension component of numbers is the most important skill you have, because the thing you're going to hear most when you travel is what your room number is, what your flight number is, what the cost is, what you owe. They ring up your coffee order, or they tell you what's on your bill for your restaurant order. Okay. Understanding the digits, have it pop into your head when somebody says a number, is the most important skill you want to carry away for next week. ¿Está bien? Good? Bien? So I'm going to send you a lot. You're going to get one video that is going to combine the ser and estar and tener. That's a long kind of video. I apologize. She's talking to middle school people. That kind of grates on my nerves, but it's actually a very helpful video. And then we're going to give you more stuff to hear more numbers, because the more you hear those numbers over and over and over again, it'll become an earworm and it'll start to dig into your brain. That's what has to happen. And we're going to make almost all of next week about numbers, talking about how much stuff costs, how many items you have, and yeah, that's it. So review just that, hard hitting. And I'll give you some videos that are going to talk about higher numbers as well. We'll dip our toe into that. ¿Está bien? We're good? Okay. Magnifico. If there is, si hay una pregunta, escríbenme, write me if you've got a question. Bien? Bien? Excelente, excelente. Ok, entonces, números muy importantes, muy importantes. We'll talk about stuff, and we'll talk about how many things you have. We'll reuse tener to say what you have, yeah? And there we go. Eso es todo, ok? ¿Está bien? Y nos vemos. We'll see you next week.